Iran's nuclear program has remained one of the most controversial geopolitical issues in the modern Middle East. But the question remains, is Iran truly building a nuclear weapon? Or is it using the nuclear narrative as a tool to gain regional influence? Let's examine the facts and the motives. Iran insists that its nuclear program is peaceful for energy, medical research, and industrial purposes. Tehran says it's their sovereign right under the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, NPT. Yet, history tells a more complex story. Enrichment activities, secret facilities, and inconsistent cooperation with international inspectors have fueled global suspicion for decades. The West, especially the United States, has long believed that Iran's nuclear ambitions go beyond peaceful purposes. The 2015 Iran nuclear deal, officially known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, was supposed to solve that. It imposed strict limits on Iran's nuclear activities in exchange for sanctions relief. But in 2018, President Donald Trump withdrew the US from the deal, calling it the worst deal ever. This reimposed crippling sanctions on Iran and pushed Tehran to ramp up uranium enrichment at levels far beyond civilian use. Iran has now enriched uranium to over 60%. The threshold for weapons grade is 90%, and experts believe that level is now within reach if Iran chooses to cross that line. But here's where the story shifts from technology to strategy. Does Iran want the bomb or just the power that comes with being close to one? Iran may be pursuing a strategy of nuclear hedging, staying close enough to weapon capability to gain strategic advantage, but without building an actual bomb. This ambiguity creates leverage. For Iran, being seen as a nuclear threshold state enhances its regional status. It signals strength to adversaries and rivals, especially Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, who view Iran's nuclear progress as a direct threat to the Gulf stability. Both Riyadh and Abu Dhabi have been vocal in their opposition. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, has even hinted that if Iran acquires a nuclear weapon, the kingdom will follow suit.
Are you concerned, though, Iran gets a nuclear weapon, about them getting a nuclear weapon?
When we are concerned, if any country getting a nuclear weapon, that's a bad move. And you don't need to get a nuclear weapon because you cannot use it. Even if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, any country using a nuclear weapon, that means they are having a war with the rest of the world. The world cannot see another Hiroshima. If the world see 100,000 people dead, that means you are in a war with the rest of the world. So it's a useless effort to reach a nuclear weapon because you cannot use it. If you use it, you gotta have a big fight with the rest of the world.
If they get one, will you?
If they get one, we have to get one.
This brings us to a dangerous regional dynamic, a potential nuclear arms race in the Middle East. The Gulf states, already deeply concerned about Iran's influence in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen, now face the prospect of an Iran emboldened by nuclear capability, or even just the perception of it. The UAE, while less confrontational, shares these concerns. Its investments in missile defense and diplomatic normalization with Israel, as seen in the Abraham Accords, are clear signals. These moves are not just about trade, they're strategic hedges against Iranian expansionism. But why does Iran want this influence? Iran sees itself as a regional superpower, a revolutionary Islamic state defending Shiite interests across a predominantly Sunni Arab region. Nuclear capability would cement that image. It's not just about missiles or uranium, it's about ideology, survival, and regional dominance. The Islamic Republic's leadership, especially the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, views the US and its allies as existential threats. They see the nuclear program as a deterrent, a way to ensure the regime's survival against foreign intervention. Let's not forget what happened to Saddam Hussein in Iraq and Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. Both abandoned their nuclear ambitions. Both were overthrown violently. Iran has learned that lesson. From Tehran's perspective, nuclear ambiguity keeps enemies at bay, strengthens negotiating positions, and allows Iran to act more assertively in the region, whether through Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, or militias in Iraq and Syria. But for Washington, this is unacceptable.
No ability to enrich. They have no ability to have centrifuges there. They can only use that facility for civilian purposes, making of electricity, things of that sort for civilian purposes. And if that's what they choose to do, if they believe in that program, they ought to expand it if they want to. But an enrichment program can never exist in the state of Iran ever again. And that's our red line. No enrichment, that means dismantlement, it means no weaponization, and it means that Natanz, Fordow, and Esfahan, those are their three enrichment facilities.
The US maintains that a nuclear-armed Iran would destabilize the entire Middle East, threaten global oil supplies, and trigger proliferation among allies. It's also a matter of credibility for decades. American presidents have said they will not allow Iran to get the bomb. That's why the Biden administration tried to revive the JCPOA, though negotiations have stalled. Iran wants full sanctions relief. The US demands stricter inspections and longer-term restrictions.
When you accumulate and continue to accumulate, and you are the only country in the world that is doing something like this at a level which is very, very close to the level that you need to have a nuclear explosive device, then we cannot ignore it. It is not per se a forbidden activity, but we cannot ignore.
Meanwhile, Israel, America's closest ally in the region, has repeatedly warned that it will act unilaterally if necessary. Israeli officials have threatened to strike Iran's nuclear facilities if diplomacy fails. This adds another layer of tension. We're looking at a powder keg where diplomacy, deterrence, and potential conflict all coexist. Back in the Gulf, Saudi Arabia is quietly developing its own nuclear infrastructure under the guise of peaceful energy. But many believe it's preparing for a post-JCPOA world where Iran is a nuclear threshold state. And what about the UAE? The UAE already operates the Baraka nuclear power plant under international oversight. But with growing Iranian assertiveness, Abu Dhabi is deepening its security ties with the US, France, and even Israel. In essence, Iran's nuclear ambitions have reshaped the region's security architecture. So, is it about building a bomb? Maybe not yet, but it is definitely about building leverage. Iran wants to be treated like a superpower. It wants to sit at the negotiation table with equal footing, and it wants to project power beyond its borders, from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. A nuclear program, even if not weaponized, gives Iran a seat in that game. But the risks are high. The US could reimpose even harsher sanctions. Israel might launch preemptive strikes. The Gulf states might accelerate their own nuclear programs. And worst of all, a miscalculation could lead to war. So what's next? Unless there's a diplomatic breakthrough, a new deal, or at least a freeze on enrichment, the region could spiral into uncertainty. And the people from Tehran to Riyadh to Tel Aviv will pay the price. Iran's nuclear program is not just a technical issue, it's a geopolitical strategy, and the world must decide how to respond with force, with diplomacy, or with a new vision for Middle Eastern security. In the end, the real power may not lie in the bomb itself, but in the fear of it.